Welcome to Barbarous Bulletin, the podcast where we dive into the most pressing stories of the day. I'm your host, Barbara, and I'm glad you're joining me for this episode. Today we're starting with a developing story out of France, where a wave of overnight attacks has hit several prisons across the country. According to reports from multiple sources, including the BBC and French media outlets, the attacks involved intimidation tactics such as burning vehicles and even gunfire from automatic weapons. The Justice Minister, Gérald Darmanin, has confirmed that several prisons were targeted, including those in Toulon, Aix-en-Provence, Marseille, Valence, Nanterre, Luynes, Villepinte, and Nanterre. The minister has stated that the government is taking measures to disrupt criminal networks, which may be linked to the recent surge in drug trafficking. The Prison Guard Union for Justice has expressed its concern and anger over the attacks, calling for urgent action to protect staff members. The union has shared images of the aftermath, including bullet holes in prison windows and burnt-out vehicles in car parks. It's worth noting that France has been grappling with a rise in gang-related crime and drug trafficking, which has led to increased tensions between law enforcement and criminal organizations. The government has vowed to take a tough stance on crime, but critics argue that more needs to be done to address the root causes of these issues. As we continue to follow this story, it's essential to consider the complexities of the situation and the potential consequences of the government's actions. We'll be keeping a close eye on developments and providing updates as more information becomes available. We'll also be exploring other top stories from around the world, including a recent crackdown on organized crime in Turkey and the ongoing efforts to combat human trafficking globally. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Barbara's Bulletin. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. We're continuing our discussion on some of the most pressing issues around the world. In our previous segment, we explored the recent developments in France regarding the protests and strikes. Now, let's shift our focus to El Salvador, where a complex situation is unfolding. As we've been following, there have been reports of over 200 Venezuelans who were deported by the U.S. and are now being held in a prison in El Salvador. Lawyers representing these individuals claim that they have not been able to visit or communicate with their clients, and there are concerns about the conditions under which they are being held. The Salvadoran government, led by President Nayib Bukele, has come under criticism for its handling of this situation. Human rights groups, including Human Rights Watch, have expressed concerns about the lack of transparency and due process in the detention of these individuals. The U.S. government has also been criticized for its role in deporting these people to El Salvador. In a recent development, President Bukele stated that he will not help return a wrongfully deported Salvadoran, which has raised further questions about his administration's commitment to upholding human rights and the rule of law. It's essential to approach this story with nuance and balance. While some may argue that the deportation of these individuals is necessary for national security or immigration control, others see it as a violation of their human rights. As we explore this complex issue, we must consider the perspectives of all parties involved and examine the evidence carefully. I want to emphasize that the situation in El Salvador is multifaceted, and there are valid concerns on both sides. It's crucial for us to remain informed and engage in thoughtful discussions about these issues, rather than relying on simplistic or partisan narratives. As we continue to follow this story, we will provide updates and insights from experts and stakeholders. We'll also be examining the broader implications of this situation for human rights, immigration policy, and international relations. Stay tuned for our final story of the day, right here on Barbara's Bulletin. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. I'm your host, Barbara. As we wrap up today's show, we're taking a closer look at a story that's been making headlines in the UK. The Birmingham bin strike. This ongoing dispute between the city's bin workers and the labor-run council has left residents frustrated and concerned about the mounting piles of trash on their streets. According to reports, hundreds of bin workers began an all-out strike on March 11th, protesting the council's decision to remove waste recycling and collection officer roles from some bin workers. The union, Unite, claims that this move would result in pay cuts for over 200 drivers. Despite negotiations, a deal was rejected by the workers, who say the offer was totally inadequate. The situation has become increasingly dire, with residents describing the scene as disgusting and unbearable. The city's streets are filled with overflowing bin bags, and the smell of rotting trash is becoming a major issue. Volunteer efforts have sprung up to help mitigate the problem, with neighbors coming together to collect and dispose of waste. Industry Minister Sarah Jones has weighed in on the situation, urging Unite to call off the strike and accept the deal. However, the union remains resolute, stating that their members are not seeking more pay, but rather trying to prevent significant pay cuts. As the standoff continues, it's clear that a resolution is needed urgently. The people of Birmingham deserve better than to have their city turned into a dumping ground. We'll be keeping a close eye on this story and bringing you updates as more information becomes available. That's all for today's Barbara's Bulletin. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay engaged.